Move on to the next topic. It's from this article that I saw being posted on the United Methodist Clergy page, and it's not a United Methodist particular article. It's on Patheos, but that's religious topics. Pastors are quiet quitting the church, and I'm ashamed to say I'd heard quiet quitting referred to before, but I didn't really know exactly what it was, and I was disturbed by the conversation that followed. Did you see this on Facebook? Did you see me lock? I locked horns with one guy who said,
no.
"Quiet quitting is just doing your job." And then when you go above and beyond for your job, you're just making it harder for any other pastors that are not as privileged as you to be able to do that. You know, some of us, we really are hard up for money, and we need to do what I would call the bare minimum. They say we just need to do what's required in our job, and anything beyond that is volunteering. It's not our job.
No, I didn't. I read the article even before you sent it to me, and I had heard of the Great Resignation and the quiet quitting in the corporate world, and I would say that there are several things. You know, again, I've been a pastor for 31 years in the United Methodist Church, and there were several things in this article that I could resonate with in my own ministry at times.
Let me give this definition just right here. It's on the screen. Quiet quitting is when you keep your job, but you don't do anything more than is expected of you. So what did you identify with in this article?
Well, I mean, the idea that you go out there, I mean, you know, being a pastor, we also have a call, and with a call often comes a passion.
Sure.
And so you're out there and you're trying to bring that to the church that you're serving, and you just, you know, at best you just get blank faces back at you, and you know, I'm not going to say how recently, maybe within a few months, I was like, why am I even doing this? Because they don't seem like this is what they want, you know, and yeah, I think I don't, if you've been a pastor for any length of time and you haven't thought that,
then you're very blessed.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so.
Well, so I would consider myself. There have been many years. I've been in ministry for almost 11 years now, and there have been years where people's eyes are glazed over, and I'm just like, "What are we doing here?" But I've been here. This is the longest appointment I've ever had, and it's like, excuse me. It's they're not indifferent anymore. They're not burning on fire yet, but we're coalescing. Is the word I would use. And that's been exciting and comforting to me. I, at one point, did not think much of long-term appointments at all. And now, having seen the benefit of helping build a group identity, I see that.
Oh, it takes a minimum of 3, maybe 4 years to just find out and learn about the congregation. And, you know, that first year of ministry and a new appointment is, I mean, it's I don't want to say wasted, but until you've gone through a full year with the church, I mean, there are all kinds of hidden surprises and things that you won't know about until you experience it. I mean, that's where it's, you know, until you've been with that church for a full cycle, those kind of surprises, those traditions.
Well, the thing this author, he focused on so the first one is pastors are notoriously underpaid. 2, churches discourage pastors from taking vacation time.
Well, I will say I think sometimes pastors discourage themselves too, but yeah.
3, constant criticism is another reason. 4, pastors quiet quit when their congregations don't give them the breathing space they need to grow. Yeah. Those are the 4 main areas. For me, I can affirm that some pastors aren't underpaid. Yeah. I can affirm that some pastors are discouraged from taking vacation time. And, you know, I've been in settings where I was criticized too much and when I didn't have space to grow. But what I believe is that that's on me.
Yeah.
I need to assert, this is what I need. Church, you need to make room for it. And if the church is not willing, then I need to find a new church. But it's not, everybody needs to give me space. It's more like, this is a dysfunctional situation that we need to augment together. But the quiet quitting thing seems so passive aggressive to me.
It is.
And not adult.
And trust me, I've followed the pastor that has quit before, you know, and come into a church situation and you know, that affects the church. And you know, we've all, I don't know, I've been a part of very small churches and very associate pastor of a large church, you know, so I've experienced the dynamic of ministry through Oklahoma, and you know, there are those churches that, you know, they have just kind of gotten to that place where all they really want is a chaplain who is going to, you make them feel good on Sunday morning and be there for their funeral, you know, and
Mary, carry, and bury him.
yeah, and there's plenty of pastors that I think are willing to do that, unfortunately. But you know, I'm one that's been, you know, my passion is the kingdom of God and seeing it done on earth as it is in heaven, and I try to bring that, you know, as I can in different ways. And you know, I mean, let's face it, this last you know, I've been in the current appointment I'm in now for 6 years, and it seems like every time I get some momentum going, you know, something's happened. You know, I'm in the appointment for 2 years, and then something called COVID hit. You know, and
Sure.
and all momentum, we were starting to gain some momentum in that, and then now we lost it all. Now we're just kind of recovered from that. It's like starting the appointment all over again. Really, it was coming back from COVID and all, and we're starting to find, you know, the changes, you know, what we thought were temporary changes are now permanent, it seems like, but we've gotten used to it, and now we're feeling like maybe some momentum is coming up, and now, you know, different conversations in the denomination are maybe affecting momentum again. And so,
Well, when we're looking at general trends within the American church, not just the United Methodist Church, but I mean, the mainline church is declining faster than a lot of traditions. The United Methodist Church has been in free fall now for at least 10 years, and it was in decline consistently before that. The Lewis Center puts out an annual report on clergy age trends in the United Methodist Church, and you can pull it up online for free. It comes up with some highlights. Young elders are in decline to record low number. There's some shifting from older to middle-age elders, though. That's interesting. Young deacons are increasing, but local pastor numbers decline, including young local pastors. So it goes on to a lot more factors in there, but the general story is, though the general church is declining, it would seem that the profession of clergy is declining even faster. I don't know actually which one is declining more, but you would think that churches would be closing and people would still be called to ministry, but really we're struggling to get.
well, and I think what's missing in those statistics is I don't remember what the number is, but the rate of persons who leave ministry after just being in it for 5 years. I mean, that's pretty high as well. I mean, and I think there are a number of factors. I mean, you know, one factor that I think affects that is, I mean, being a pastor is a pretty lonely job because, you know, it really is. I mean, in all the appointments I've served, there's only one appointment where my wife feels like she was accepted for herself and not as the wife of the pastor. You know, where she felt like she was making genuine friends as friends and not, you know, we've had friends in every church, but you know, it's still that dynamic of, well, you're the pastor's wife or you're the pastor, and not just you're Brian, you're Gail.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, it wasn't a friendship. I guess it felt like a friendship of equals. I guess, you know.
Right.
And
well, we've been told as clergy to have a clinical relationship with our people. So how do you have genuine friendships in a clinical environment? And the answer is you don't. You know, when we're looking at how impersonal and lonely the pastoral profession is, I think that's something that clergy did to ourselves.
Well,
I don't think it's something that churches have done to us. I think it's something that this article, this author of Quiet Quitting, he puts on to. But my comment on Facebook was, I grew up in the era when giving pastors space meant buying them a house across town, which a lot of churches did.
I've had the parsonage across the street.
Well, I live right next to the church, and I love it because there's this decision pastors have to make of, is this going to be a profession for me or a life calling for me? And that's not the same thing. A profession is clinical, it's limited, you put all these boundaries on. with a life calling, you're vulnerable to these people, and you expect them to be vulnerable to you. And you can tell I'm drawn to this one. I don't care about all the professional stuff. You know, I do it to make my higher ups happier. But my wife needs real friends, and she has them here. She has a women's discipleship group where those ladies share. They do life together. I got a men's discipleship group does the same thing. I don't know how pastors do it without this, but there are some pastors, all they do is programming, people moving, pew filling, and they're all about that final action of send them out, get them doing something. There's something to be said for just basking in God's glory together, growing in discipleship together, and then letting flow from that the things that we do communally. But so many pastors, they want the good photo op, they want the good important mission, but they don't necessarily know, they don't even know necessarily how to just sit with their people, be with their people, share in life together, do life together. I just think those are two very different models of ministry. And one is depressing for like there are a lot of people who are depressed, and it's like, dude, you're doing it in a way that's going to set you up to be depressed, you know? So you need to augment, instead of quiet quitting. Quiet quitting just feels like the most hateful thing to me. What happens if a pastor has something akin to a midlife crisis, just going, I thought I had the right boundaries here, but I'm miserable. So let's shake it up a little bit. Let's be more intimate, you know?
Well, there are a lot of moral failures in ministry, I think, because of that, actually. But, you know, you reminded me, when you were speaking, I was reminded of a quote that was from Fred Craddock. And I can't remember the exact quote itself, but basically he was talking about seminary students and what is the difference between, you know, what happened in seminary when a student came in full of fire, full of passion for God, and 3 years later, I should date the quote, it seems like it's 4 years now for seminary, right, for most people, but 3 or 4 years later, they come out and that passion is gone, and the liberalism of the seminary usually gets the blame for that, but Craddock said he felt that these were the persons who substituted talking about God for talking with God.
Okay.
And that there is that personal responsibility we have to our own discipleship, to our own relationship with God. And if we don't make that a priority for ourselves, who will?
Right.
And if we're not operating out of that priority, then I think you are more likely to run into those factors of quiet quitting. Because, I mean, to be honest, those times when I felt like, well, maybe, I could relate to those are also times when I wasn't taking care of my personal relationship as intentional. And that's been something that I've been doing very well, actually, in the last 4 or 5 years, you know, even through COVID. I mean, but one of the best things I did in 2017 was get a spiritual director and meet with them regularly.
Interesting.
And you know, that just kind of helps keep that in the forefront. And then I try every 6 months to put myself at a conference that I know is going to feed my soul.
Sure. Yeah.
And usually the church has realized that when I come back from one of those conferences the next Sunday, look out, because it's going to, you know, I can't contain the sermon anymore.
Well, clergy friends, if you're watching this and you are miserable in your job, think about Brian's approach, which is going to conferences that'll pick you up every 6 months, getting a spiritual director.